The complex and dangerous geopolitical power struggles in the wider Middle East have again been thrown into turmoil by the sudden resurgence of the civil war in Syria. Many were caught unawares by yesterday's attack by rebel jihadi forces from northern Syria on the country's largest city, Aleppo. President Assad's allies today carried out airstrikes against his opponents as they now press forward into central areas of the country. But the insurgence comes as a huge blow to his authority, not to mention his main backers, Russia, Iran and Hezbollah, all of whom are currently rather preoccupied elsewhere. With the UN Security Council scheduled to hold an emergency meeting about Syria tomorrow, the fear tonight is that the conflict could also trigger a new humanitarian crisis.
In Syria, there's almost nowhere more indispensable than the hospitals of Idlib. And yet it was there today, with Russian fighter jets, that President Assad chose to send the signal that he is still around. This is what a regime fighting for survival looks like. Rescues from the rubble in the cities where the insurgent threat to the president is now existential. They're rattled by the sight of insurgents sweeping through Aleppo to take selfies at the citadel, once a regime fortress. They've been making more progress in days than they have in many years. Photos at the city's airport too, where the aircraft lie destroyed. Boarding bridges lead to nowhere, and journeys ahead seem uncertain.
What I witnessed now is Assad forces attacking civilians in hospitals and neighborhoods in both countries, Aleppo and Idlib city.
Sarah has been updating ITV News from Idlib through the day, and tonight she sent us this dispatch.
I am afraid for my sister's son. My sister is always afraid for her son because what's happening now, they are attacking children, they are attacking civilians everywhere.
The coalition of insurgents is led by a jihadist group, a former affiliate of Al-Qaeda. So for the US and others, it means that although they condemn Assad, they struggle to back Assad.
Assad is a brutal dictator with blood on his hands, the blood of innocent civilians inside Syria, blood of his own people on his hands. Ultimately, what we want to see is a political process forward where the Syrian people get to determine who their leaders are.
Syria's war has lasted 13 years. Its chief warlord has lasted even longer. President Assad met Iran's foreign minister at the weekend, one of those supportive friends like Russia, who've been keeping his regime alive, as hundreds of thousands were killed. Enough victims to fill many mass graves. Some of the sites identified here by ITV News. Militants, civilians caught in crossfire, opponents assassinated. Last year, one of the men who dug those graves told us how he buried children born in Assad's jails.
So there was a child born in a detention center to become a food for dogs. Nothing could be more cruel.
But as Assad's backers have become distracted since then, the image of an invincible leader is proving to be just an illusion. So what's happening in Gaza, in Lebanon, and in Ukraine are coming together here, unfreezing a conflict which could have consequences elsewhere.
And Rohit's here with me now, as you can see. So, Rohit, this conflict in Syria has been going on for years, relatively unreported of late, because the focus has been, of course, on Gaza. Where does it go now, do you think, in Syria?
Well, I mean, given the fact that the rebels themselves last Monday couldn't have predicted where they would be today, difficult for us to see where the future goes for this. And certainly talking to diplomats in the region this evening, there is no consistent assessment among them. Look, the regime could collapse if this level of momentum continues, or the Iranians and the Russians could back up their ally and double down, or this frozen conflict could continue at a further intensified level. I think what all those scenarios have in common is that there will be a huge humanitarian consequence and quite potentially a massive migration of people, a crisis that was faced in Europe and elsewhere many years ago.
OK, Rohit, thank you very much indeed.